Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books on this holiest of days, the Tirobhav Maha Mahotsav, the disappearance day of our dear most Srila Prabhupada. And for me, because I was there when Prabhupada left, and matter of fact, I was standing very close to him, looking at his face when he left, and right next to Jayadvaita Maharaj, there's a famous photo which I sent to him for our mutual remembrance. It was a very emotional, as you can well imagine, experience for all of us who were there, but some of us are more emotionally oriented than others. So ever since then I've been pretty much reclused on this day, even when I'm in a setting where I'm in a large temple and large festivities going on and programs. But where I'm living now facilitated my spiritual need to meditate deeply. I watched the whole 11th volume of Yadubhar's Following Srila Prabhupada, and in that 11th it showed all of the things leading up to Prabhupada's disappearance and his disappearance, and I could see myself there in my body, and yes, it was quite intense. And then I got a phone call from Burijan Prabhu, who was also there and is also a deep friend, and we shared some remembrances. And just before we set up to do the reading, I had this very strong realization that actually, since I started doing these daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, the feeling of separation that I normally feel has reduced, because when I'm reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I'm tangibly, palpably in his presence. There's no difference between his books, and I don't care what anybody says about the editing or this or that. This is all just hogwash. It's all hogwash, as you all know, we're up to 2,500 and some odd followers now in this daily readings. And as you all know, these books read like nectar, and there's no question that Srila Prabhupada is fully present. And Jayadvaita Maharaj and Dravida particularly, who have done the mountain of the majority of the editing, they deserve to be worshipped, actually, because their editing is masterful, with so much deep experience over years and years, many years with Prabhupada present and many years without, to go deeper and deeper into the books, so that the adjustments that need to be made, that Prabhupada wanted to be made to make the English precise and clear and forceful, as he said in his own words in a letter to Hayagriva, it succeeded. Okay, enough of my musing, my waxing philosophical. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we read it every day, and I never get tired of it, because it's such a beautiful, poetic glorification of the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. And in one sense, it also explains why Srila Prabhupada stopped his translating and commenting on the Bhagavatam in order to finish the whole Caitanya-caritämrta. It's so important. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all scriptures. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, we reached chapter 20 of the Madhya-lila, Caitanya-caritämrta, and we're right in the middle of the instructions, the beginning of the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu to Sanätana Gosvämi. And I'm trying to stop in places that are like stopping places. It's not easy, but I think this is a good one. I'm starting with text 120. If the conditioned soul becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of saintly persons who voluntarily preach scriptural injunctions and help him to become Krishna conscious, the conditioned soul is liberated from the clutches of Maya, who gives him up. Shall I repeat that? What a beautiful verse. If the conditioned soul becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of saintly persons who voluntarily preach scriptural injunctions and help him to become Krishna conscious, the conditioned soul is liberated from the clutches of Maya, who gives him up. Purport. A conditioned soul is one who has forgotten Krishna as his eternal master. Thinking that he is enjoying the material world, the conditioned soul suffers the threefold miseries of material existence. Saintly persons, sadhus, Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, preach Krishna consciousness on the basis of the Vedic literature. It is only by their mercy that the conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness. When awakened, he is no longer eager to enjoy the materialistic way of life. Instead, he devotes himself to the loving, transcendental service of the Lord. When one engages in the Lord's devotional service, he becomes detached from material enjoyment. Bhakti, parashanubhavo viraktir, parashanubhavo viraktir, anyatra chaisha trika eta kalaha. Bhagavatam 11.2, 42. This is the test by which one can tell whether he is advancing in devotional service. One must be detached from material enjoyment. Such detachment means that Maya has actually given the conditioned soul liberation from illusory enjoyment. When one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, he does not consider himself as good as Krishna. Whenever he thinks that he is the enjoyer of material advantages, he is imprisoned in the bodily conception. However, when he is freed from the bodily conception, he can engage in devotional service, which is his actual position of freedom from the clutches of Maya. This is all explained in the following verse from the Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratjaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etang tadantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Text 122. The conditioned soul cannot revive his Krishna consciousness by his own effort, but out of causeless mercy, Krishna compiled the Vedic literature and its supplements, the Puranas. Purport. A conditioned soul is bewildered by the Lord's illusory energy, Maya. Maya's business is to keep the conditioned soul forgetful of his real relationship with Krishna. Thus the living entity forgets his real identity as spirit soul, Brahman, and instead of realizing his factual position, thinks himself the product of the material energy. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.5, Yaya samohito jiva atmanam tri gunatmakam padopi manyute nartam tatkritam chabipadyate. Due to the external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. This is a description of Maya's action upon the conditioned soul. Thinking himself a product of the material energy, the conditioned soul engages in the service of the material energy in so many ways. He becomes the servant of lust. He becomes the servant of lust, anger, greed, and envy. In this way, one totally becomes a servant of the illusory energy. Later, the bewildered soul becomes a servant of mental speculation. But in any case, he is simply covered by the illusory energy. Out of his causeless mercy and compassion, Krishna has compiled various Vedic literatures in his incarnation as Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is a Shakyavesh avatar of Lord Krishna. He has very kindly presented these literatures to awaken the conditioned soul to his senses. Unfortunately, at the present moment, the conditioned souls are guided by demons who do not care to read the Vedic literatures. Although there is an immense treasure house of knowledge, people are engaged in reading useless literature that will give them no information on how to get out of the clutches of Maya. The purpose of the Vedic literatures is explained in the following verses. Text 123. The forgetful conditioned soul is educated by Krishna through the Vedic literatures, the realized spiritual master, and the super soul. Through these, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is, and he can understand that Lord Krishna is his eternal master and deliverer from the clutches of Maya. In this way, one can acquire real knowledge of his conditioned life and can come to understand how to attain liberation. Purport. Being forgetful of his real position, the conditioned soul may take help from Shastra, Guru, and the Supersoul within his heart. Krishna is situated within everyone's heart as the Supersoul, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 1861. Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddhisharjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantravrudani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. As the Shaktavesh avatar Vyasadeva, Krishna teaches the conditioned soul through the Vedic literatures. Krishna externally appears as the spiritual master and trains the conditioned soul to come to Krishna consciousness. When his original Krishna consciousness is revived, the conditioned soul is delivered from the material clutches. Thus, a conditioned soul is always helped by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in three ways: by the scriptures, the spiritual master, and the Supersoul within the heart. The Lord is the deliverer of the conditioned soul and is accepted as the Supreme Lord of all living entities. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 1866, Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekang sharanam braja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. This same instruction is found throughout all Vedic literatures. Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru act as the representatives of Krishna, and the Krishna consciousness movement is also taking place all over the universe. Whoever takes advantage of this opportunity becomes liberated. Text 124. The Vedic literatures give information about the living entity's eternal relationship with Krishna, which is called Sambandha. The living entity's understanding of this relationship and his acting accordingly is called Abhideya. Returning home back to Godhead is the ultimate goal of life and is called Prayojana. Text 125. Devotional service or sense activity for the satisfaction of the Lord is called Abhideya because it can develop one's original love of Godhead, which is the goal of life. This goal is the living entity's topmost interest and greatest wealth. Thus one attains the platform of transcendental loving service unto the Lord. Purport. The conditioned soul is bewildered by the external material energy, which fully engages him in sense gratification in various ways. Due to engagement in material activities, one's original Krishna consciousness is covered. However, as the Supreme Father of all living entities, Krishna wants his sons to return home, back to Godhead. Therefore he personally comes to deliver Vedic literatures like the Bhagavad Gita. He engages his confidential servants who serve as spiritual masters and enlighten the conditioned living entities. Being present in everyone's heart, the Lord gives the living entities the conscience whereby they can accept the Vedas and the spiritual master. In this way, the living entity can understand his constitutional position and his relationship with the Supreme Lord. As personally enunciated by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaish Chasarvair Aham Eva Vedyaha. Through the study of Vedanta, one may become fully aware of his relationship with the Supreme Lord and act accordingly. In this way, one may ultimately attain the platform of loving service to the Lord. It is in the living entity's best interest to understand the Supreme Lord. Unfortunately, the living entities have forgotten that this is in their best interest, and therefore Srimad Bhagavatam says, Nate vidu swartagatim hi Vishnum, Bhagavatam 7:5-31. Everyone wants to achieve life's ultimate goal, but due to being absorbed in the material energy, we waste our time with sense gratification. Through the study of Vedic literatures, of which the essence is the Bhagavad Gita, one comes to Krishna consciousness. Thus one engages in devotional service called Abhideya. When the living entity actually develops love of Godhead, he has reached the ultimate goal, prayojana. In other words, one who becomes fully Krishna conscious has attained the perfection of life. Text 126. When one attains the transcendental bliss of an intimate relationship with Krishna, he renders service to him and tastes the mellows of Krishna consciousness. 127. The following parable may be given. Once a learned astrologer came to the house of a poor man, and seeing his distressed condition, questioned him. Purport. Sometimes we go to an astrologer or palmist when we are in a distressed condition or when we want to know the future. The living entity in conditioned life is always distressed by the threefold miseries of material existence. Under the circumstances, excuse me, under the circumstances, he is inquisitive about his position. For instance, Sanätana Gosvämi approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu, to ask him why he was in a distressed condition. This is the position of all conditioned souls. We are always in a distressed condition, and an intelligent man naturally becomes inquisitive. This position is called Brahma Jigyasa. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Vedanta Sutra 1.1.1. Brahma here refers to the Vedic literature. One should consult the Vedic literature to know why the conditioned soul is always in a distressed condition. The Vedic literatures are meant to free the conditioned soul from the miserable conditions of material existence. In this chapter, the story of the astrologer, Sarvagya, and the poor man is very instructive. Text 128. The astrologer asked, "Why are you unhappy? Your father was very wealthy, but he did not disclose his wealth to you because he died elsewhere." 129. Just as the words of the astrologer gave news of the poor man's treasure, the Vedic literatures advise one about Krishna consciousness when one is inquisitive to know why he is in a distressed material condition. Text 130. By the words of the astrologer, the poor man's connection with the treasure was established. Similarly, the Vedic literature advises us that our real connection with Sri Krishna is with Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.26, Sri Krishna says, Vidaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani chabhutani mam tu veda nakaschana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all things that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. Thus Krishna knows the cause of the diseased condition of the conditioned soul. He therefore descends from his original position to instruct the conditioned soul and inform him about his forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. Krishna exhibits himself in his relationships in Vrindavan and at the battle of Kurukshetra, so that people will be attracted to him and will return home back to Godhead. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the proprietor of all the universes, the enjoyer of everything that be, and the friend of everyone. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam. Bhagavad Gita 5:29. If we revive our original intimate relationship with Krishna, our distressed condition in the material world will be mitigated. Everyone is trying to adjust to the distressed conditions of material existence, but the basic problems cannot be solved unless one is in an intimate relationship with Krishna. 131. Although being assured of his father's treasure, the poor man cannot acquire this treasure by such knowledge alone. Therefore the astrologer had to inform him of the means whereby he could actually find the treasure. Text 132. The astrologer said, the treasure is in this place, but if you dig toward the southern side, the wasps and drones will rise, and you will not get your treasure. 113. If you dig on the western side, there is a ghost who will create such a disturbance that your hands will not even touch the treasure. 134. If you dig on the northern side, there is a big black snake that will devour you if you attempt to dig up the treasure. 135. However, if you dig up a small quantity of dirt on the eastern side, your hands will immediately touch the pot of treasure. Purport. The Vedic literatures, including the Puranas, state that according to the position of the conditioned soul, there are different processes: karma-kanda, jnana-kanda, the yogic process, and the bhakti yoga process. Karma-kanda is compared to wasps and drones that will simply bite if one takes shelter of them. Jnana-kanda, the speculative process, is simply like a ghost who creates mental disturbances. Yoga, the mystic process, is compared to a black snake that devours people by the impersonal cultivation of kaivalya. However, if one takes to bhakti yoga, he becomes quickly successful. In other words, through bhakti yoga, one's hands touch the hidden treasure without difficulty. The goal of all the revealed scriptures and Vedic injunctions is Krishna. As he himself says in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaish Chesarvair Aham Eva Vedyaha. Since the Vedas enjoin one to search out Krishna and take shelter at his lotus feet, and since no Vedic process but devotional service will enable one to do this, one has to take to devotional service. According to the Bhagavad Gita 18:55, only the bhakti process is said to be definitive. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. This is the conclusive statement of the Vedas, and one has to accept this process if one is serious in searching for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives the following statement. The eastern side represents devotional service to Lord Krishna. The southern side represents the process of fruitive activity, karma-kanda, which ends in material gain. The western side represents jnana-kanda, the process of mental speculation, or sometimes siddhi-kanda, the mystic yoga system. The northern side represents mystic yoga, or sometimes the speculative method. It is only the eastern side, devotional service, that enables one to attain life's real goal. On the southern side, there are fruitive activities by which one is subject to the punishment of Yamaraj. When one follows the system of fruitive activity, his material desires remain prominent. Consequently, the results of this process are compared to wasps and drones. The living entity is bitten by the wasps and drones of fruitive activity and thus suffers in material existence, birth after birth. One cannot become free from material desires by following this process. The propensity for material enjoyment never ends. Therefore, the cycle of birth and death continues, and the spirit soul suffers perpetually. The mystic yoga process is compared to a black snake that devours the living entity and injects him with poison. The ultimate goal of the yoga system is to become one with the Absolute. This means finishing one's personal existence. But the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has an eternal, individual existence. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that the individual soul existed in the past, is existing in the present, and will continue to exist as an individual in the future. Artificially trying to become one with the Absolute is suicidal. One cannot annihilate his natural condition. A yaksha, a protector of riches, will not allow anyone to take away riches for enjoyment. Such a demon will simply create disturbances. In other words, a devotee will not depend on his material resources, but on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can give real protection. This is called Rakshishyatiti Vishwasa, or in the Bengali poetry of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati, Avashya Rakshive Krishna, Vishwasa Palana. The surrendered soul must accept the fact that his real protector is Krishna, not his material acquisitions. Considering all these points, devotional service to Krishna is the real treasure house for the living entity. When one comes to the platform of devotional service, he always remains opulent in the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is bereft of devotional service is swallowed by the black snake of the yoga system and bitten by the wasps and drones of fruitive activity, and he suffers consequent material miseries. Sometimes the living entity is misled into trying to merge into the spiritual existence, thinking himself as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that when he comes to the spiritual platform, he will be disturbed and will again return to the material platform. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32, Yen ye Ravindaksha Vimuktimarinas Tvayasta Bhavad Avishuddha Buddhayaha Aruya Krich Trena Padang Padang Tatag Padang Tado Nadrita Yushmad Angriyaha. Such people may become sannyasis, but unless they take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, they will return to the material platform to perform philanthropic activities. In this way, one's spiritual life is lost. This is to be understood as being devoured by the black snake. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What a purport! Sometimes you just come to a purport where everything is there. You can just study that one purport, read it again and again and again, and you'll get everything. That's one of those purports. And I'll stop the reading there because that was so deep and so nourishing. Let that sink in, that last purport. Hare Krishna. Also, along with the other things I did today, I chanted 76 rounds. So I'm feeling quite blissful, and the reading is easier and more clear. I think it's obvious. The more we chant Hare Krishna, the better. Hare Krishna.
First is from Kuru.
Hare Krishna Kuru.
He says Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Gopi Chandra Devidasi says Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Gopi Chandra. I hope you're safe and secure there in Hungary, in your flat, and you're secluded and safe from the virus, which is spreading faster everywhere.
Next is from Gopakanya Devidasi.
Gopakanya, Hare Krishna.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And tier above, tithing of our Srila Prabhupada and Savior of the fallen souls. All glories to his divine matchless service that he gave to humanity, and our transcendental daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books.
I'll tell you a little anecdote that I heard today as I was hearing about Prabhupada's disappearance day. It comes from Bibi Govinda Maharaj, who at the time was known as Ayodhyapati. And he cooked the feast for all the devotees just after Prabhupada left. And after Srila Prabhupada left, we all went to the temple room and we chanted all night. But Ayodhyapati, or Bibi Govinda, he understood that he needed to, he had to cook the next day, so he had to get some rest, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to do it. So he surrendered to the idea, and it was very late. I think it was 12 or 1 in the morning, and they needed someone to chant, and there was a devotee there. Not everyone knew him, but Ayodhyapati Prabhu knew him. So he asked him to chant, and that was Krishnadas Babaji, the godbrother of Srila Prabhupada, disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And he was very famous for being always very jolly and chanting all the time. Very blissful person, very funny. And he said at that instant that our Srila Prabhupada was the greatest Acharya that ever walked the earth. Now that's really significant because, generally speaking, Prabhupada's godbrothers, the disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, they were very attached to him, and they would always consider him to be the powerhouse, and they would never say anything like that. But then when he was asked how that could be, he said because our Srila Prabhupada was so attached to the chanting of the holy name that he took the trouble to take it around the world and was empowered to do so. And no one else had ever done that before. Hare Krishna.
Stefano says Haribol.
Haribol, Stefano.
From Noel.
Bhakti Noel, Hare Krishna.
Says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I am grateful to hear you read on this day of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. I look forward to you reading these transcendently nectarian texts every day.
Thank you.
Sometimes I wonder how we are so lucky for this mercy that can guide our spirit souls out of the illusion of Maya. Thank you for your continued service in sharing these words with us. Your servant, Noel.
Just trying to deliver the mail. Just the peon delivering the mail. Trying not to get in the way. Hare Krishna.
This is from Dubai.
Attila.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for sailing with us on the ocean of this transcendental nectar.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Thanks for getting on the boat.
There's a comment from Brajaloka.
Hare Krishna, Brajaloka.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Gurudev. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you. Today I cannot come for the reading because I have service, but I would like to express some feelings on this very special day. I heard a lecture today which touched my heart deeply. The speaker said that to serve Srila Prabhupada means to join ISKCON. In order to really be a member of ISKCON and serve, we need to become Krishna conscious ourselves. This means that our first and most important service to Srila Prabhupada is to become Krishna conscious ourselves. It was also discussed in the lecture that Srila Prabhupada, although not physically...
It's first, but it's not the end, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Prabhupada did not approve of someone just becoming Krishna conscious himself. Then we have to share it with others. Of course, you already know that. I'm just filling that in. Go ahead.
It was also discussed in the lecture that Srila Prabhupada, although not physically here, is present in his books, in his lectures, and in another special way.
Yes.
He is present in the hearts of his disciples.
Yes.
When someone really deeply takes shelter of Srila Prabhupada, he enters the heart of that person, and so he can show Srila Prabhupada to others. There are many ways to show Prabhupada, but the person through whom I can meet Srila Prabhupada is my spiritual master. Prabhupada manifests himself to me through the Guru. On this very special day, I would like to express my deep gratitude to you, and I would like to thank you for helping me become Krishna conscious, and by that I become able to really serve Srila Prabhupada one day. I also would like to thank you again and again for showing to us Srila Prabhupada through your pure, loving, and fully surrendered heart. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, all glories to your daily readings, which are giving Prabhupada to everyone who wants to take shelter of such a great soul, your servant.
Hare Krishna, that was very nicely said. Deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Sutter Esther says Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vibhu Sharma
Vibhu Sharma, Hare Krishna.
says Hare Krishna Maharaj. How can we chant so many rounds as 76?
How can we? Just keep chanting. Practice. Practice makes perfect. If you chant, 10, 15-minute rounds, that's not very practical. But if you chant, 5, 6, 7 minutes rounds, it's possible. But you have to like to chant to do that. You have to like to chant a lot. You have to become attached. This is the secret of success, to be attached to chanting, especially our japa, and reading the books, hearing about Krishna, the glories, His name, His glories, His pastimes, His entourage. The test of our advancement is how attached we are to hearing those things. Thank you very much, everybody. It was perfect timing, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Tomorrow night, same time, same place, same subject, Transcendental Bliss. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.